darkest nights, from the sunny day, from the darkest night, from the sunny
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to the News Rodeo Daily, or is it the Daily, see, I can't even remember how to remember. Is it the Daily AHNC News Rodeo, or is it the AHNC Daily News Rodeo? I can't remember how to remember. Anyway, I'm your host, Hat, as always. Welcome to the show. We may go long today, folks. The earlier shows were saying slow news day. I don't see it, folks. I got a lot here. A little of it, some people might have covered a couple days ago, but I think I can flesh it out a bit better. I've got some things here in the first block with, let's see, let me just take a look here. Got some Cuomo stories, of course. Got a little bit about Amazon and the latest news with its banning of the book When Harry Became Sally. Also, some interesting news about a bunch of money that went towards private schools in the Porculus bill that just passed, as Dan Bongino likes to call it, the $2 trillion waste of money that we just threw out there. And again, call Governor Kemp in Georgia and thank him for screwing up the Georgia election so badly that Georgia couldn't even elect one Republican senator. Thereby, we wouldn't be going through all this right now. But again, Governor Kemp's numbers on the internet, and they'll talk to you live, just saying. And then for the second block, I have a number of things. Oops, I went to the wrong page. Give me just a second. I've got some really interesting COVID news, and also how woke won't keep you from going broke, even when you try. And then also we'll finish up with a lot of Brian Stelter and why he shouldn't be in the news, but he is anyway. So let's get to it. First off, our Babylon Bee bookend from the left. This is their U.S. section. New M1's Abrams tanks to come equipped with changing tables. And here you see the back end, the back right end specifically of an M1A Abrams. And right there you can see a built-in baby changing table in the proper sand, light sand coloring. So all set to go. Dateline, Lima, Ohio. As part of an ever-progressing military, a new feature has been added to the next line of M1 Abrams tanks, a diaper-changing table. Quote, "The horrors of war have often been unfriendly to the busy mom on the go," said DoD spokesman Clayton Brown. "Our mission is to change things so pregnant women and working moms all feel welcome in our quagmires in the Middle East and have opportunities to blow up the locals with depleted uranium shells." Close quote. In addition to the changing table, each new tank will also be slightly larger in order to fit a private lounge for breastfeeding. So far, women in the military love the new components. Quote, "It's really great as a mom to have these additional features," said Private Lorraine Hodges, though she said the tank isn't great for small children since, quote, "it's very noisy and constantly under attack." The new tanks should be deployed worldwide very soon, as many hotspots aren't doing very well since backup troops had to be rerouted to rebut Tucker Carlson on Twitter. Pardon the mistakes, folks. Again, I am a speed reader, so the words go into my head a lot faster than they come out of my mouth. Thank you for putting up with that. And I'd just like to say hello in the chat real quickly to Wheatmouth817 and Uncle Bobbity. Greetings to you both. Continuing along, my personal conceit, the market, a daily look at it, and it has been a really, really weird day on the market. It started out very high. In fact, it broke into record territory. And then there was a sharp drop-off between the opening and right around quarter after 11 Eastern. And then there's been a steady rise, a little bit of profit-taking late afternoon, and then there was a precipitous rise at the end of trading to get into record territory. The Dow, just under record territory, excuse me. The Dow closed at 32,953 and change. So within striking distance of the never-before seen 33,000 mark. The Dow was up 0.5%. The S&P 500 nearly the same. The Nasdaq was just over a full percent. Gold saw a rise today. There's some interesting news about bond prices. The rates for bond prices are falling off, and as bond price rates go down, gold goes up. So do other precious metals. And the inverse, which is what we were seeing all last week with bond prices going up, so then gold was slipping quite a bit. And then oil actually saw a tick of a drop at 0.3%. It is now below $65.50 per barrel of West Texas Intermediate sweet crude. Okay, so breaking news, as I teased in the opening screenshots, title cards, if you will, which I hope you like, by the way. I'm going to start doing that from now on. Instead of just having the hat all over the place, I'm going to try and have a timely screen card for the upcoming show. I hope you like it. I'm trying to get a little professional here. But anyway, this broke just a couple hours ago. Two men have been charged with assaulting a late Capitol Police officer, Brian Sicknick, during the January 6th riot. You remember that Brian Sicknick died the evening, 2 days, I should say, after the riot. We were initially told he was hit in the head with a fire extinguisher and died from blunt force trauma. Then a report came out a few weeks ago that said he had not suffered a head injury, that the autopsy did not show that, although we do not have any official results from the D.C. medical examiner still. There's been a lot of mystery surrounding Sicknick's death, as there has been the shooting of Ashley Babbitt. That's another story entirely. But it turns out the feds have video of two people spraying Officer Sicknick with bear spray, and he did tell his brother in a text after the riot that evening that he had been hit with bear spray, but that he was fine, and then he died the next night. His mom said they think he had a stroke, but again, the medical examiner has not released any official results, so we don't know what they're saying. But according to this article from the Daily Wire by Tim Pierce, Julian Katner of Pennsylvania and George Tanios of West Virginia have been charged with assault for allegedly hitting Sicknick, who died a day after the riot, with chemical spray, according to the Washington Post. Katner and Tanios face a total of 9 charges that are punishable by up to 20 years in prison. The men were connected with the assault through tipsters who contacted the FBI, identifying the men from videos. Tanios' sister claimed that he was arrested for something he didn't do. He didn't do it. He would never do that. And that's a quote. So we will have to see how this shakes out. But again, according to the complaint, the official complaint, the feds have video and tipsters who have fingered them. So we'll have to see what happens. Now, if they did, in fact, assault the officer and are tried and convicted in a fair and open trial, then I hope they get the punishment that is due to them. I do not agree in assaulting anyone unless your life is in danger or the life of another is in danger. But that's pretty much the way the law is written. As I understand further down in the article, I want to include this. I almost forgot. At least 140 officers from the Capitol Police and Metropolitan Police Forces were injured during the riots, including severe injuries such as cracked ribs, smashed spinal discs, and a lost eye. Now, I had not heard of any of those injuries before. And I am remiss for not reporting that to you sooner. I just didn't know. But those are horrific injuries. Broken ribs are incredibly painful, and there's nothing you can do for them except wait for them to heal. The thing in the movies you used to see where people would get their ribs taped in place doesn't work. Doesn't work. They still float, and every time you breathe, they grate against each other. It takes forever for them to heal before it stops hurting. And smashed spinal disc, folks, I've been having back surgery since 1994. I've got every disc fused from the bottom thoracic vertebrae all the way down to the sacral vertebrae. T12S1, everything's fused. And I still need one more back surgery, at least, which we may see at the end of this year. We'll talk about that later. But a lost eye. I mean, my God, can you imagine? Can you imagine losing an eye? Yes, God gave you two, but depth perception is a thing. You can train yourself to have a kind of depth perception with one eye. The famous aviator Wiley Post was able to do that and continue flying until he died in a seaplane accident in Alaska with, what was his name? The humorist. Oh, God, I forgot his name. Boy, my memory, you guys. I'm sorry. It just came to me and suddenly I lost his name. But Wiley Post set the altitude record at one point in a Lockheed Vega. He wore kind of a spacesuit and fully pressurized with oxygen. It was an incredible feat. Anyway, that was back in the piston era. I would like to welcome Joella Grayson to the D-Live chat and to the channel. So nice to see you. Oh, and Joella, thank you for reminding me. Again, a busy day will probably go long, but I have to say this. D-Live. I just got a notice on YouTube. This broadcaster has indicated this channel is intended for mature. Oh, I'm sorry, on D-Live. That's it, D-Live. I see. I forgot what channel I was looking at. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay, D-Live. That's cool. It just reminded me. D-Live has changed its terms of service and the things that are available to you. As you know, last year we were constantly put under what they called the X tag, which was you had two levels. You had basically open to everyone, and then X tag, which was their not safe for work tag. And no one could see you unless they looked for you specifically. And then early this year, I should say, they demonetized all of the X-Tag channels. Just boom, took the money out right from underneath them without a word as to why. So I moved the channel to Trovo, and we initially did well, but I never really picked up any kind of followers on Trovo, certainly not like I had been on D-Live. It was very, very stagnant. And then I just heard from from D-Live, there's so many channels, just from D-Live the other day, that they now have three levels of viewership. They have basically everyone, which is simple stuff like regular games, simple games like, say, Minecraft, things like that, or humor channels. And then you have mature audiences only, which is what I have this channel labeled as, which means we're going to discuss politics and things for grown-ups. And then there is the X tag, and that is for total not safe for work stuff. Now, again, they do have bans on pornography and things like that. These new terms, these new levels, I should say, don't take away any of their already in-place terms of service, but they give you more options. And the other thing is now the X tag, if you're under that, you are demonetized. You cannot make money under the X tag. Now, I've originally been categorized, according to D-Live, under the everyone tag, but I decided that it should be mature audiences because we do discuss politics in depth, so I went for that. So that's what's going on. So again, thank you, Joella Grayson, for following, and thank you for reminding me that I needed to talk about that. Really glad to have you here. All right. Oh, and another thing, because of this, man, my memory, the after show will now be on both DLive and Trovo. I will only be walking away from YouTube for the after show. So that's the new thing as well. So 2 new channels to watch the after show on, plus Rumble, of course, when I upload it there. Just search AHNC on Rumble and you'll find me. Continue. Oh, sorry, that was the wrong channel. Continuing along. All right. You may have heard of the book When Harry Became Sally. It came out a couple years ago, and it was a very, very scientific look at the transgender crisis. Now, the author in the book makes specific differences between transgenderism and gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria is a medical condition. It's in the DSM-V5, the Diagnostics and Statistics Manual, which is the Bible for psychiatrists. You're not a psychiatrist if you don't have a DSM on your table, period. And the author of the book made that distinction. He said transgenderism is the social changing of gender, that you want to be a different gender, whereas with gender dysphoria, you have no choice. You are so uncomfortable in your body that is as the sex your chromosomes say you are, that you have actual mental and physical discomfort. That is the difference between transgenderism and gender dysphoria, and the author made that point very clear in that book. Now, Amazon pulled the title just about a month ago, saying that it promoted. Actually, they didn't give any argument at first. Let me back up. They didn't give any argument at first, except they said it was hate speech, and that's why they're covering it. But they, in a March 11th letter, Amazon said to some Republican senators, they chose not to sell the books, quote, that frame LGBTQ plus identity as a mental illness. And that was a March 11th letter to those Republican senators, and the Wall Street Journal got a copy of it. Now, the author, Ryan Anderson, in an interview with the Epoch Times that I'm reading now, written by Peter Zvab, he said, and I quote, "Nowhere have I ever said or framed LGBTQ plus identity as a mental illness." Quoting still, "The phrase mental illness does occur in the book twice, but not in my own voice. Once quoting a trans woman writing in the New York Times, and once quoting the current university distinguished service professor of psychiatry, at Johns Hopkins." I tried to pronounce that psychiatry for some reason. And continuing, Anderson makes a distinction between transgenderism, which he describes as a belief system that's in major part political, and gender dysphoria, an established mental condition of extreme and persevering discomfort with one's biological sex. He acknowledges that the discomfort is genuine, not imagined. So right now, there's a debate, a very serious debate, on how best to treat gender dysphoria. The latest standard promoted by the APA, the American Psychiatrists Association, is to confirm the person's discomfort as being their real sex, and to help them transition into it. The idea of giving them therapy to try to help them be more at ease in their current body has been thrown out. Some psychiatrists agree with that, some don't. And hello, Laura, nice to see you. And Mr. Grayson is just discussing that point in the book. And so Amazon just yanked it and then said it's hate speech without making any distinctions. And then they sent that March 11th letter to those senators, and which is, as the author just pointed out, a complete lie. And I said Grayson, I meant Anderson, pardon me. So that's what's going on there. Now, as we talked about last week, Amazon owns 80% of the, at least national, book distribution market. I don't know about worldwide. 80%. So what people are doing now is they're self-censoring. They're writing books in such a way that Amazon can't classify them, hopefully, hopefully as hate speech, or make up some other rule and get it pulled, and thereby taking away 80% of their potential circulation and, in extension, 80% of their potential income from the sales of the book. Now, there are a number of online retailers who carry these copies as well. Some of the smaller ones don't have the kind of slap-happy censorship that Amazon does. I forget the name of it now, but the bookstore in Portland, the one that was selling Andy Ngo's great book on Antifa, that was pulled it from its physical store because Antifa kept attacking the store, but they did sell it online, and I have my copy in the front room right now. There are other excellent books sellers out there, so you don't need Amazon yourself. But another thing that's happening is book publishers are looking at titles, are looking at treatises, and they're saying, well, Amazon might not carry this, so we don't want to do it, because again, you're losing 80% of your possible circulation and possible sales. So who could afford to publish a book with all that costs and not get but 20% of what you could possibly get? So that is a huge, huge disservice to just general discussion of ideas. And it's exactly what Western civilization is about, is the discussion of ideas. It's been that way, really. I shouldn't say Western civilization. I should say going back to Plato and Aristotle, and as Steve Martin, pronounces it, Socrates. The greats. Oh, and Plato is another way Steve Martin would pronounce that. Plato. So these are the things that we need to function as a society. We also need to keep our language intact, and the left is constantly trying to change the language to frame their own argument and to make you fight on their terms. And as I've said often, and will repeat often, never let them define the language. If you find yourself saying something that the left has tried to promote as the way to describe it, then stop and fix it. I don't care if it's mid-sentence, stop and fix it. Perfect example. I think I just got... I got disconnected from YouTube for a second. I'm back on. Remember last year when federal law enforcement officers were sent to Portland to protect the courthouse because Antifa kept trying to burn it down and was vandalizing it every night? The left immediately started calling them troopers. And not just troopers, but people like Pelosi and the head of the Congressional Caucasian Caucus, as Rush Limbaugh refers to them, kept referring to them as stormtroopers. And the independent media started using the word troopers. And I used the word troopers a few times. And I finally realized that I was playing the left's game. They're not troopers. They're law enforcement officers. They are not military personnel. They are law enforcement officers. That's the kind of game the left plays with you. They try to take ideas away, and the ideas they can't take away, they try to frame in such a way that you're forced to argue it on their terms. You cannot let that happen. Fight. Fight tooth and nail. All right, continuing on. By the way, I'm trying something new. Liquid IV. I keep hearing about it. And it's already made some changes in a couple of my daily habits. But I just started taking it, so I won't say anything until I know for sure. But it may be making me better. We'll have to see. Again, that's not a paid advertisement. I get no money from anybody except you guys. This is entirely listener watcher funded. But just saying, it's interesting so far. Electric Dog puts in the D-Live chat, don't fall for their mnemonic tricks. Absolutely, sir. Absolutely, sir. Oh, Laura, you ordered some too. We'll have to stay in touch about that. I'll email you after a couple days and see and tell you if what I'm thinking is actually happening. It's a little personal, but you might be interested to know. But it tastes good. I've got it in an Ice Mountain sparkling water right now, the berry flavor. Now, if you do pour it in the sparkling water, don't have it in a full glass, because obviously this stuff is a powder, and you put powder into something that is carbonated and it'll blow up. The foam will go everywhere. So you may want to mix a little bit of it, and then pour the rest in. I only drink sparkling water, but interesting to say. Interesting to say. So anyway, Cuomo. It's been getting worse and worse and worse for him, but in the wrong way. We've been talking about the Cuomo killing fields for months now. I coined that term. And we now know that possibly 1,000 more deaths could be attributed to Cuomo's action to force COVID-positive patients into nursing homes, long-term care facilities, and developmentally disabled facilities without allowing them any time to prepare or even allowing them to test people for the virus before they come in. So they couldn't even know if they were positive or not. And again, possibly 1,000 extra deaths in the 15,000 New York nursing home patients that were lost. And again, if you've seen the data, if New York was its own country, it would lead the world in deaths per million, by far, by far. Now, Cuomo, of course, was held up as the gold standard. In fact, that's exactly how 46 Asterisk referred to him as on the campaign trail, that Cuomo was the gold standard for governors when it came to dealing with the Chinese Communist Party virus. So we were dealing with that scandal, which again broke back in January when Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, filed a report showing the actual number of deaths, which had been reported around 9,000 and actually turned out to be closer to 15,000. And then Cuomo started scrambling. Well, a little while later, we started getting all of these reports of sexual harassment, not sexual assault, except the latest one. The latest one says that Cuomo touched her extremely inappropriately, and I'll leave it at that. I don't know how much I can say on YouTube, but it was not a friendly touch. Let me leave it at that. Not as bad as what Biden is purported to have done to Tara Reade, but still very inappropriate. But the first one who came out was Lindsey Boylan. And she came out back in December, and she got zero traction. No one in the major media covered it, except maybe Fox a little bit. And I touched on it briefly because it was one announcement, and I was still more focused on the killing fields. But I did cover Lindsey Boylan's Medium article, which came out a few weeks after her initial charge. And I covered that pretty much in depth. And then there were 5 more over time. 5 more accusers of Cuomo. And that has been the lead story. People aren't talking about the killing fields as much as they're talking about the sexual harassment. So he may be responsible for at least, I shouldn't say at least, but no, yeah, at least. The report that I read to you said at least 1,000 extra deaths from statistical analysis. But everybody's talking about the sexual harassment charges, one of which has been turned over to the police for criminal investigation. There's currently an independent panel investigating Cuomo, but we've seen what independent panels in New York State do. They tend to be very, very heavily politically run, let's put it that way. So we'll see what happens. You may know that 46 Asterisk actually answered a question from the press yesterday about this, and he just said, well, there's an investigation going on. We have to see how things turn out. Me too, folks. Me too, right? Believe all women, right? Which is stupid. No offense to women, but women lie too. Everybody lies. I lie. Try not to lie to you, but I lie. So sometimes I think I'm a pathological liar, actually. But maybe I'm just being too hard on myself. Now, I'm not saying that about any of the women who've come forward. I was not in the room with them. The only one we know for sure that happened was the one where we have a picture. We have a picture of Cuomo with his hands firmly clamped around the sides of a woman's face, and then he yelled out, "How about a kiss?" and leaned in to kiss her without her permission at all. And it was after he had placed his hand on her bare back. She was wearing a bareback dress. He didn't know her from Adam. There were 2 random people at a wedding, and he basically attacked her. Now, Cuomo has put this off as, hey, I touch people. I'm a people person. That's how you get to know people, which was the exact same excuse 46 Asterisk made when he was being challenged on all of his squeezing, touching, and patting moments that have all been, many have been caught on tape. And we've seen those videos over and over again. But in fact, Fox.com this weekend had a picture of Cuomo, and then next to that was one of the pictures of Biden inappropriately touching someone and sniffing their hair at a swearing-in ceremony. And they were making the comparison, which is the first time I've seen them side by side. But Lindsey Boylan's spoken out again, and it's pretty intense. She's deleted the tweet, but it is the internet is forever. So Lindsey is basically saying that silence is violence. The left says that all the time. If you don't talk all the time about something that they feel is a bad thing, then you are in support of the bad thing. Silence is violence is what they say. So Lindsey Boylan turns it around on them. And she said in this tweet, "You are seeing blue trolls harass me and other survivors because Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Senator Gillibrand, Representative Jeffries, Nydia Velázquez, I don't know who that is, and New York Representative Espaillat, and Representative Maloney, and countless others, senior in the Democrats, are supporting it with their silence." Silence. Silence is violence, folks. Again, if you're going to make us play by the rules, we're going to put them right back in your face. Boylan continued, "Nothing is sadder than adults who cannot adult. Oh, and they're blue troll farms. They're literally paying for this crap!" Exclamation point. Now, especially under fire right now for all this is Harris. She repeatedly was out in front on Me Too moments back in the day. Repeatedly. During the campaign, which she left before there was one vote in one primary, by the way. Suddenly she's number 2 in this country. But she was right out in front, and she said, when Tara Reade came out against Joe Biden and accused him of a very serious sexual assault, Harris said, "I believe her. I believe her. I think she's credible." And then she was asked on camera, "Do you think Biden should step out of the race?" And she said that's a decision he and his campaign have to make. She was also very, very upfront on the accusations against then Judge Kavanaugh during that circus. She treated Kavanaugh like a sex offender. Almost literally. The questions that she asked him. Very, very disgusting questions. But now she hasn't said a word about any of this. Not about the killing fields and not about the women. And the press is taking note. They are taking note. And Lindsey Boylan, again, the first one to come out, she's calling out Harris as well. Continuing. Once again, if you use Fox News as a source, you have to refresh the page when you get to it. There will be a video that tries to play, probably, so hang in there. Not on this one. Okay, so it's getting really... here it comes. Hang on just a second.
People know.
There we go. All right. Cuomo has been told to step down by a lot of lawmakers, both Republican and Democrat. He's losing support in the New York State House quite deeply. He's got national people coming out against him, and but he has said, "I'm not going to resign. I was elected by the people. I'm not going to let cancel culture take me out." Well, here's the thing. What if he can't do his job? What if he basically becomes to use the term, cuckolded in the governor's mansion, Gracie Mansion, which is a beautiful building. And grounds, too. It's one of the most gorgeous governor's locations in the country. But his staffers have stopped showing up to work. Not all of them, but most, according to this article from Fox News, written by Sarah Dorn. It originally appeared in the New York Post. They're not showing up for work. According to one well-placed insider, I hear that most people aren't even coming into work at the offices, and the offices at the Capitol are empty. Continuing the quote, he'll fight and fight and fight, but the staffers I've talked to are ready for him to hang up the gloves. Everyone feels like there is an inevitable conclusion. I mean, at some point, will Biden call on him to step down? The staffers just want this torture to stop. Here's my favorite quote of this article, though. I feel a level of rage towards this fake tough guy, seethed an ex-aide. The guy thinks he's the toughest, the hardest working, he's the smartest. The truth is he's anything but. He's the weakest, he's the dumbest, and he's the most shallow of them all. He is genuinely a very small man who pretends to be big. Wow. Wow, wow, and wow. Damning stuff from an ex-aide to Governor Cuomo. Killer Cuomo. May I use that? Can I start using that? Killer Cuomo? Killer Cuomo in the Cuomo killing fields? It's got a nice consonance to it. I may have to start doing that. So an article from the Epoch Times from Jack Phillip. New York is doing its best to become a ghost town. First of all, you had the highest deaths per million from the Chinese Communist Party virus in the country, in the world. Killed an extra 1,000 people in nursing homes. And we still don't know the numbers on the developmentally disabled homes yet. I talked about that just the other day, where they had something like 50% more infections in those homes than they did across the rest of the state's population. But another problem that New York has had is losing businesses. Partially because of the lockdowns. People have been closed. They have not been able to reopen because New York knows nothing about science. It's all just guesses and hunches designed to weaken the economy and make people forced to rely on the government for their own incomes. Remember, the Democrats are not for capitalism. They're for statism. They want the state to run things. And you can see by the bills that have been passed recently and the bills they are trying to pass that it's getting worse and worse. But before we get to the federal government, let's look at the New York government. They want to pass a $7 billion increase in taxes on businesses and the wealthy. Now, one of the reasons people have been flocking out of New York for years, well before COVID, was the tax rate. One of the earliest large proponents of that was Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh was the guy at WABC New York, which is one of the most prominent radio stations really in the world. If you want to be syndicated, you've got to be on WABC. It's just the way it works. Although lately it's relaxed. With podcasting, there's more of a demand for content, and so the ability to get syndicated is loosening. But still, at ABC, WABC in New York is the king. And Rush was on there. That's where he really blew up. And it got to the point where he didn't like New York that much anymore, and he was commuting from his new home in Florida to New York to do the show. And New York passed a new law that if you were in New York for 6 months plus a minute, then whatever income you made, you had to pay both whatever state you lived in and New York state taxes, plus whatever business taxes were applicable to you at the time. And Rush said, screw it. And he moved his studio to what he called the Southern Command in South Florida, where he did the show for the rest of his days. God rest his soul. And New York learned its lesson by trying now to increase the taxes even more. So again, article from the Epoch Times by Jack Phillips. The Democratic leaders of the New York State Assembly are proposing a $208.3 billion, that's with a B, folks, dollar budget for the coming fiscal year, including a 22.6% increase in spending over the previous fiscal year, 10% higher than what Cuomo, a Democrat, proposed. Now, New York would be going bankrupt right now if it wasn't for the porculus bill that has just been passed. And again, thanks to Dan Bongino for the word porculus. That bill is paying off all of the debts of New York State, New York City, San Francisco, and the LA county pension system. Paying all those bills. Illinois is getting a big chunk of it as well. But, as I said, all that's going to do is it's going to embolden them. Instead of decreasing spending and finding ways to strengthen their economies, they're going to increase spending because they just got this big batch of money from the government, and they're going to have to keep spending it over when it runs out. Remember, the Democrats want you to get hooked on money from the government. If you've read the worst parts of the porculus bill, they are setting us up for a guaranteed basic income system. That new child credit that you're going to get, no matter marital state, no matter work state, that is promoting even more not having having kids, whether you're married or not, and not working, which has been the biggest knock on the welfare system since it first started in 1965 or 66. I forget which one, 65 or 66. That it promoted unwed mothers having more and more children. And we saw the unwed mother rate in the black community absolutely explode after welfare came into being. Absolutely explode. Right now it's at something like 70%. And New York is going the same way. They're going to increase taxes to try to make up for their spending, and then they're going to blow out their spending even more. And all they're going to do is drive away businesses and drive away the rich. And the rich pay the vast majority of the taxes in this country. The vast majority of the taxes in this country. Let's just go look at some of the things they're going to do here. More taxes include one on capital gains. Those earning more than $1 million a year would receive a 1% capital gains tax. The proposal would also increase the estate tax rate from 16% to 20%. It would also include a minimum business tax on corporate capital, a tax on, quote, mezzanine debt and preferred equity investments, close quote, and a new 18%, quote unquote, surcharge on corporate franchises, utilities, and insurance companies. New York Post noted that the surcharge could mean higher bills for customers. I'd like to correct the New York Post there. Not could, will mean higher bills for customers. You do not raise taxes by 18% and not expect prices to go up. You do that, and the company is going to pass the penalty onto the consumer. It's the only way they can pay for it and stay in business. But then business will fall off because the prices are too high. So then you have to look at maybe laying people off, because you can't cut their wages because New York has a $15 an hour minimum wage now. And let's look at this again. Corporate franchises, McDonald's, Subway, Starbucks. You own a Starbucks. Boom, 18% surcharge on your business. Boom. Where's that money going to come from? You're going to raise the price of lattes. A lot. Insurance. Utilities. That's a regressive tax. You raise the rates for utilities and insurance, it's going to affect the poor more than the middle class and the rich. Taxes like that are regressive taxes, just like a gas tax. America is supposed to be a country proud of its progressive tax system, and something like this is the exact opposite. one last thing. Also proposed is a progressive state tax on those with pied-à-terres. I'm sure I mispronounced that. Mansion townhomes or similar homes used as a second New York City residence. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the term, and again, let me get the pronunciation right here. Let's see. Get Merriam-Webster here. Pied-à-terre. Pied-à-terre. Okay. Let's see if I can play it.
Pied-à-terre.
Pied-à-terre. Thank you, Merriam-Webster. I don't like you, but at least you gave me the pronunciation. And a pied-à-terre is a temporary home or a second lodging. And it's French, literally meaning foot to the ground. I've always wondered what that meant. It's the first time I ever looked it up. So New York State is doing its best to drive away even more people. Electric Dog asked what? Yes, universal basic income. Thank you, Uncle Bobbity, for doing the heavy lifting in the chat. I appreciate it. Continuing with raising taxes, you remember that 46 asterisk said on the campaign trail, I'm going to raise your taxes. That's a quote. I'm going to raise your taxes. And sure enough, it's coming. We all knew it was coming. I mean, there's no way you can pay for a $2 trillion handout to blue states and teachers unions, but I'll have something on that handout that will surprise you. I'll have that in the second block. But we knew that tax increases were coming. It's one of the reasons I yanked my 401k out this year, because I wanted to get underneath the new taxes. I'm also looking at other investments with that money, because I'm not just going to let it sit there. It's not going to make any money just sitting there. I've made one move already, and I'm planning on making another move real soon. I won't go into that, though, because I don't want you guys thinking that when I cover something, I'm only doing it because it's important to me. I want it to be important to all of us. I don't want you to get that impression, so I'll be keeping that to myself. But anyway, we've got Janet Yellen here. She was head of the Fed for a while, so it's not like she doesn't know her way around money. But she's saying that, according to Tom Ozimek from the Epoch Times, that a wealth tax is not off the table. Now, the wealth tax was first proposed by none other than Cherokee Liz. Liz Warren, senator from New York, on the campaign trail was talking about a wealth tax, where I believe it was the top 1% was going to pay more. But a wealth tax is not the same as an income tax. An income tax is what you earned for that fiscal year. A wealth tax is everything you own added up and taxed. Now, let's just say you're, the former president of the United States, 45. And you own buildings, big buildings that are worth billions of dollars. Now, you can't just sell that building and pocket those $1 billion. It's going to be paid out over time, most likely, although sometimes it is a lump sum. So let's just say President Trump has $10 billion worth of buildings in New York City. I'm sure it's much more than that. Let's just say $10 billion worth of buildings. Now he made, again, making this up, $1 billion in 1 year. And he paid the normal federal tax rate on that. And boom, he's done. But if you had a wealth tax, he would not only have to pay on that $1 billion of income, he'd have to pay on that $10 billion worth of property per year. Per year. So let's take it down a notch. You own a home. You're paying mortgage on it, but right now your home has been appraised at, say, $100,000. Pretty much a median price for homes these days. And you pay taxes on that home. Let's say your tax bill each year is $3,000. Okay, $3,000 on your $100,000 home. And then let's say you've got savings of $1,000 for grins. And then you have an income of $60,000 a year. That wealth tax would tax you on that $60,000 plus that $1,000 in savings, plus that $100,000 in the home. Every year. Now, they say they're only going to charge the top 1%, but as we all know, taxes ultimately trickle down to the middle class. Always. Always. It's one of the reasons George H.W. didn't get a second term. Ross Perot had a big hand in that, but he also promised not to raise taxes, and then he put in one of the largest tax hikes in U.S. history. I'd like to welcome Michael Scriven and Jason Lord Surratt to the chat. Very nice to see you, sir. Very nice to see you. D-Live is not over, good sir. D-Live is not over. Actually, we're on it right now, as well as Trovo. D-Live has changed its classification policy, and I'm able to stream on it again and make money while I'm at it. Very nice to see you, sir. Very nice to see you. I got both my lawyers in the chats right now. This is wonderful. I'm so proud. How many guys this size can say they have two authors in their chat? Seriously. I'm so proud of that. Proud of you guys, too, for doing what you did. But it just makes me feel good to know that you find this content worthwhile. It says something about us, I guess, anyway. But yeah, so wealth taxes are on total worth. And it's insane. It's absolutely insane. I mean, look at people in California where your home, even though it's from the 1940s, is worth $1 million because of the land that it's on. Because California won't let people build on new land. They've completely shut down the ability to open up new areas for building. So wherever something is, that's the only place something else can go. It's one of the reasons home prices in Texas have gone up so much. Because people sell their house in California and have so damn much money they can buy whatever they want. And still bank half of it. At least. I mean, at the very least, half of it. Excuse me, that's my alarm to switch over. And it's amazing. It's insane. It's absolutely insane to think that a homeowner in California could be hit with this wealth tax. It would bankrupt them. They would have one choice: sell the home and move. So let's say they had $1 million home in California, they sold it, and then moved to Texas and had a $250,000 home, which is a really, really nice home in Texas. Really nice home in Texas, $250,000. You'd get a big lot with it too. They don't have that $1 million home anymore. Now they're worth $750,000 or $500,000. With the $500,000 home, they invest some of that money. They do some things to hide it. In fact, the new tax plan is going to encourage people hiding money again, which is one of the first things Trump did. Was he brought $1 trillion worth of cash back into the economy by lowering corporate tax rates and taking away penalties for moving money back onshore from offshore accounts. This new tax plan is going to double the incentive to hide money. And as I will quote often, and it bears repeating, you raise taxes like this and Star Wars immediately kicks in. The more star systems I'm going to screw up the quote now. Damn my memory. I'm going to screw it up. The more star systems you take over, the more galaxies you take over, the more star systems will slip from your fingers. Princess Leia to General Tarkin. I know I screwed it up a little bit, but that's the point. The more tightly you grasp, the more you lose. And that's what these tax increases are going to do. People are going to park money offshore. And another thing that's going to happen is businesses are going to be looking at higher corporate rates. So the corporate rates go up. There's less incentive to invest in your company because you're going to get less of a return from those investments. And that stymies growth. One of the things this new tax plan that they're looking at is talking about is putting together a rollback tax system on corporate taxes. Now, they're not talking about rolling back, meaning we're going to roll the taxes back to a previous point. What they mean is we're going to start out at, say, 28% corporate tax rate, and we're going to increase it over time. Why they're using the term rollback, I don't know. Maybe it was a typo in this article, because that was the term that was used. But and that's another thing that's going to stymie growth, because businesses are going to wait to see how much it's going to cost them long term. This is all bad planning. This is all bad planning. If you want an economy to shrink, raise taxes. It's the perfect way to do it. Bond rates slipped today. So gold went up. You raise taxes. Prices are going to go up. The Fed's going to have to print more money to try and stabilize the economy, and that's just going to make inflation get worse and worse and worse. Right now, inflation is at, I believe, I think it's at like a 15-year high. Price over earnings is something like 24 multiplier, 25 multiplier price over earnings. So I can't predict the future, you guys. I've tried in the past and I failed miserably. But there's no hiding the fact that this could lead to some serious inflation. Welcome, Jason Lord Surratt, to the D-Live chat. Nice to see you. Yes, for those of you who are interested, I do have a pinned chat on YouTube with the links to both the Trovo channel and the D-Live channel. And we will be now switching over to the after show for D-Live and Trovo. So I'll be saying goodbye to YouTube. Thank you for being here. Michael Scriven, please drive safely. Nice. And get home and have a great night. Really, really looking forward to seeing you again. So, again, every day, 4 p.m. Eastern till approximately whenever we stop, normally about 2 hours, but we stop an hour early on YouTube so I can speak more freely and get out from underneath the censoriousness of YouTube. And then thankfully D-Live stopped that, so we're good to go again. So I'll see you. I'll see YouTube. I'll see you tomorrow afternoon. Bye-bye. All right, let me see if I can find where I turned that off.